Today we are going to implement a practice session with varying levels of contextual interference and augmented feedback. Our motor skill is a forehand volley. We will be practicing 3 motor skills: the stationary volley, volley step, and approach volley. Focusing on beginner to intermediate tennis players. The goal for the performer is to refine their skills and successfully execute a cross-court forehand volley in a doubles match. Critical factors are movements that all tennis players must do in order to hit a proper forehand volley. The critical factors are spatial awareness, knee flexion angle, racket preparation, shoulder turn to initiation of weight transfer to front foot, acceleration and initiation of weight transfer to front foot to racket ball contact, deceleration and follow through racket ball contact to completion of the stroke. Flexible factors are things that can vary across tennis players but will not affect the execution of the skill. Flexible factors are maximum wrist extension angle, speed of the swing, and racket ball trajectory. To start our practice session, we will begin with a 10-minute warm-up. Our warm-up is arranged in a blocked practice in which the performer is going to focus on catching the ball with one hand while the other hand is behind their back in a stationary position. They will execute this drill for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, the performer will then sidestep from left to right in the court while throwing and catching the ball. Blocked practice has the lowest amount of contextual interference, so the performers will perform better. It is also beneficial since the performers start practice with successful attempts and positive reinforcement, boosting their confidence. Once they have completed the 10-minute warm-up, the performer will progress to mini block practice. Mini block practice has a low amount of contextual interference since the sequence is predictable and there is a limited amount of switches. In this practice session, we are focusing on 3 motor skills: stationary volley, volley step, and the approach volley. The first mini block will consist of the performer executing the push forward motion in a stationary position. We are emphasizing proper form based on the critical factors as well as hand-eye coordination because the preceding mini blocks are the progressions of the first skill. The second mini block requires the performer to take a step forward, then perform the volley. The third mini block will require the performer to run forward, sidestep to the right, and hit. This mini block is aimed to increase the amount of control the performer has. When executing our practice sessions, it is important to note that providing augmented feedback to our performers should enhance their task intrinsic feedback, which is feedback that the individual gets from their own senses. Beginner to intermediate players are still in the initial cognitive stages in which they commit a lot of errors but may not know what they are doing wrong or why. Prescriptive KP describes the error and methods to correct the movement. The outcome may not be consistent, but they need information on how to refine their movements to improve the outcome.
During the first mini block, feedback provided would be to watch the ball, face the racket to me, and grip it tight, since we are emphasizing the push forward motion. In the second mini block, the coach will emphasize stomp forward. In the third mini block, the feedback provided would just be to run forward then sidestep. In this practice session, we will provide feedback in a faded technique using prescriptive KP. We will provide more feedback in the beginning, then slowly fade out to allow for trial and error.
Because the performer has established the proper form with a forehand volley, the next practice session would be result dependent, in which their performance in the first trial will determine the preceding steps. In this case, the performer will perform a forehand volley in one spot 20 times in a row. In order to be successful, the performer must hit 20 times with a 70% success rate, being 14 out of 20 shots into the service box. Result dependent has a higher amount of contextual interference because the next trial is unknown. The more the practice characteristics are similar to test conditions, the better the learning. If the performer is successful, they will move on to the next drill, which would require the performer to step forward and then perform the volley. The performer must successfully complete 20 forehand volleys with a 70% success rate, 14 out of 20 times in the service box. However, if they are not successful, the coach will require the performer to take a break and reflect on their performance prior to executing the next trial. Because the timing of feedback is crucial, the coach wants to promote the KR delay interval, which is the interval between the end of the performance and providing feedback. The KR-KP delay interval should be long since we want the performer to use their task intrinsic feedback. Therefore, once sufficient time has passed, the coach will provide summary feedback, meaning the coach will provide a summary of all 20 repetitions after 20 repetitions. Once the feedback is provided, the post-KR-KP interval should be the longest. Therefore, in this case, the performer will incorporate the feedback provided by the coach along with their task intrinsic feedback. Once they are ready for the next trial, they will continue with the same task as the first. However, if they are unsuccessful on their second trial, the performer will regress back to catching the ball in order to increase their hand-eye coordination. Once the performer has finished the practice sessions, we will wait 24 hours after in order to assess learning in a retention and transfer test. In the retention test, the performer will execute all 3 motor skills 5 times without feedback. The 3 motor skills being the stationary volley, volley step, and approach volley. After a break, the performer will then execute the transfer test, which is a volley game.